What exactly is your definition of face-off success? For that matter, what about the power play? When do you think it's successful? When do you think it's not? It's not always about scoring goals, is it? And then finally, we'll take a look at the game coming up this Saturday between the Blackhawks and Montreal in Chicago. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Costa here from PuckTalk Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of PuckTalk Montreal for this October 10th. And as we get started, as always, we talk about our partners, starting with InstaCustoms. InstaCustoms is your number one destination for custom apparel printing. They're the highest rated print shop in Canada with over 3,000 Google reviews, a 4.9 star rating, and they were nominated for a 2024 Canadian Business Choice Award. They print on all your favorite clothing, plus coffee and travel mugs, and yes, they even offer embroidery. Most orders are printed and shipped the very same day, and large orders in less than 3 days with free shipping. Open 7 days a week. They're located downtown on Stanley Street. Easy to remember as it ties in with the Canadiens' ultimate goal of winning the Stanley Cup. So whether it's for yourself, a loved one, or your business, trust InstaCustoms. Visit them in person or order online at instacustoms.com. Now let's start this episode with a little bit of logic. There have been reports coming out of Montreal today that a deal between the Canadiens and Lane Hutson is imminent. Why do you say that's the impression that people are getting? Well, because a certain reporter from the Journal de Montréal spotted Ryan Barnes, one of the representatives from Cortex Management for Lane Hutson, talking to Kent Hughes in Detroit. And what do you think they were going to do? Honestly. Now, Ryan Barnes can negotiate all he wants. At the end of the day, there's more than one person that is actually representing Lane Hutson. And in these negotiations, that's been the biggest problem. It's not the player, because he knows he's going to sign with Montreal. And it's not Montreal, because they know he's going to sign with Montreal. How do they know that? Well, the player has no arbitration rights, and nobody can offer him an offer sheet. Not a single team. Why? Because he's coming out of entry level. Nobody can touch him. Nobody's going to throw stupid money at him, and nobody's going to force the Canadiens to do something stupid like Tom Dundon in Carolina. So there's nothing to talk about there. The only thing that's really been holding this negotiation back is Lane Hutson's representation. When you have two different agents, or three for that matter, that are representing you from the same company, what happens? You get two different sides of the coin. You may have one guy that says, you know what, it's good to sign for 8 years. You might have another guy that says, you know what, don't sign for 8 years because in a few years, the cap's going to go up and we can get you more money. Then the other guy comes back and he says, well, you know what? You're happy where you are. If you like the Canadiens and you like the group, why wouldn't you want to stay long term? To which the other guy answers, you know what? The Canadiens may break up the party if they can't win in the next few years. So why would you want to lock yourself in? All those are hypotheticals, by the way, but you see what I'm getting at. There's no win-win when you have more than one person representing you. And that's where sometimes the player has to get involved and say, oh, stop. Forget about what you think. This is what I want. Get it done. And that may very well be what Lane Hutson is going to have to do. But in the meantime, Ryan Barnes is going to talk to Kent Hughes. Sean Caufield is going to talk to Kent Hughes. I mean, after all, Kent Hughes worked for the same agency, Cortex Management, based out of Montreal. So chances are these guys already know each other. They see each other in Detroit. They may not be talking about Lane Hutson at all. They may be sitting down talking about somebody else. You don't know. It's speculation. And that's all any of this has ever been. Whether it's Elliot Friedman or whether it's Chris Johnston from Sportsnet or whether it's Jonathan Bernier from the Journal de Montréal, nobody's talking. And right now, I don't think anybody's even negotiating. That's the impression I get. Have I heard that a deal may be close? Yes, because they are close. They've kind of figured out what the term's going to be. They've kind of figured out where the money's going to be. They just have to get to the point where they decide that, okay, this is the dollar amount, and they go forward from there. But there are other details that have to be worked out in the contract. It's not as cut and dry as term and cash. There's other issues, right? So, one thing's for certain. You don't have to worry about Lane Hutson re-signing with Montreal, because it's not a re-sign. It's just a sign. He can't sign anywhere else. It's not like he can leave. And worst case scenario, if he sits out the beginning of next year, the only person that he's going to be hurting through all of this is himself. Why? Because if a player goes into the next season without a contract and into the preseason, that doesn't bode well for his future because it looks like he's being too stubborn, right? And in the case of a guy like Lane Hutson, I don't think he's a stubborn kid at all. He's the type of kid who just wants to play hockey, and he leaves everything up to his representation. Like I said, one day he's going to have to turn around and say, guys, stop. But let's leave it at that. Let's not focus everything on his negotiations because at the end of the day, he's going to sign a contract, pure and simple, with the Montreal Canadiens and no one else. So let's leave it aside. It's not the most important thing that's going on right now. It's important, but not the most important. So let's move on to one of our next subjects. And as we do that, let's talk about our other partner, and that is cheapesttshirts.ca. Proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers, cheapesttshirts.ca has unbelievable value. You'll always get the lowest prices plus same-day shipping and even next-day delivery, so your order arrives fast. With over 1,000 products of 36 trusted brands like Gildan, Jerseys, and American Apparel, their selection is unmatched. Cheapesttshirts.ca is the go-to source for businesses, events, apparel printing companies, and resellers, or even people just looking for the best deals on everyday clothing. Plus, enjoy free shipping on large orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes ordering online a breeze. Get the best deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. Now, in the last show, I brought up Faceoffs, and I used Joe Thornton as an example because Joe Thornton is, for all intents and purposes, one of the best face-off men of the last 20 years. You could throw Patrice Bergeron in there. You could throw in, a Claude Giroux maybe, Steven Stamkos. At the end of the day, there's a lot of guys that were very good at winning face-offs, Thornton being among the best. But to get there, there's a simple formula in order to be able to be good at winning face-offs. And I'm going to go through it here rather quickly. I'm not going to take too long to bore you to death, but I want everybody to get an understanding that it's not all about just the puck. There's more to it than that. Number one is your stance. Like in baseball, your stance is everything. And every player in baseball has a different stance. Every face-off taker in the NHL has a different stance. Why? Different height, different build, different skating style, you name it. But the most important part about a player's stance is there's three things that really go into the stance that's very important. Number one is the width of their stance, because you have to be comfortable and you have to be balanced in order to be able to take a face-off and not get beat by the opposing player. Number two, you need to have your upper hand in the right place to have leverage on your stick. And number three, you need to have your lower hand down for power. Those are the three things you have to work on time and time again to find your sweet spot as a player. And the thing is that nobody's got that same sweet spot. Some guys like to have their hand down at the bottom of the stick closer to the blade. Other guys like to be halfway up, just like I said, like a batting stance. Some guys like to choke up on the bat. Other guys like to have their hand over the knob. It's the same idea when you're taking a face-off. Some guys like to have their hand slide down the shaft so it's not right up at the butt of the stick. Other guys like to have it right up there so they have the full flex on the stick to be able to generate more power when they're winning a face-off. But you get what I'm getting at, right? And there's multiple techniques, which is the second thing I'm going to talk about. There's multiple techniques to winning a face-off. There's a forehand pull where you're pulling it directly to your forehand. So if you're a right-handed shot, you'd be going to your left. Your left-handed shot, you'd be going to your right. Then, of course, there's the backhand pull, which would be the opposite. Left-handed, you're going to your left. Right-handed, you're going to your right. There's the technique that's called the tip and kick, where you just tap the puck towards you and kick it with your foot. There's the stick lift and blocking the other player from being able to use their stick to get to the puck. And then, of course, this is the one that we tried to use when we were kids, which is just to chip the puck forward and try to chase it into the other zone. Those are the 5 different techniques that you can use to be able to win a faceoff. Now, granted, technique is one thing, but there also has to be a level of physical strength, not only upper body, but lower body. You have to have strong forearms. You have to have a wide base and strong thighs and calves to be able to balance yourself. You need to be able to have enough strength to generate quickness. Right? You need to have timing. And the thing about timing is there's more than one way to time yourself. You time yourself vis-a-vis, as I mentioned yesterday, the referee's cadence when he drops the puck. Not all referees or linesmen have the same one. Then you have to take a look at your opponents and their timing. How quickly do they react with the puck hitting to the ice? Do they react to it hitting the ice, or do they react to it leaving the linesman's hand? Those are all things that you have to look at when you're a player, right? Then you have to take face-off situations and integrate them into team play. How do you do that? Well, for every face-off situation, whether it's on the left side of the ice or the right side of the ice, you should have two different strategies: the win and the loss. When you have certain face-off guys out there, you have to develop a strategy with the wingers, defensemen, and everybody to be able to get possession of the puck. So let's say, for example, you have Alex Newhook taking a face-off, and he's on his weak side, which would be the right side of the ice. Now, in knowing that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get Alex Newhook to try a technique to be able to tie up the other player so that the winger can come in and get possession of the puck, right? That's one thing that you can do. Another thing you can do is you can have him chip it forward and have the winger along the boards go to the corner to go get the puck. That's your winning combination. What do you do if you lose? Obviously, the centerman is always responsible for covering the center immediately off the draw. But depending on where you are in the zone, what do your wingers do? How quickly can they get to the puck to try to get possession back? Just because you lost a draw doesn't mean you lost a face-off situation. That's what I'm trying to get at. And even though the percentage may show low, a team's ability to react and go get the puck may very well still work in their favor. So there's that to consider. You know, you always analyze performance. You always put guys out there that have a certain level of mental strength and confidence. When you put guys to take face-offs that are struggling and they get into their own head, oftentimes they'll lose more and more and more, and they don't get out of that rut. So you need to make sure that you continue working on face-offs, praise them when they do well, help them when they don't do well, but don't get negative, because then it helps nobody. And as I mentioned, you study the guys that were some of the best at taking face-offs. You look at, as I mentioned, Joe Thornton. Jonathan Taves was always good at taking face-offs. Sidney Crosby uses a flat stick, so he'd be able to take face-offs all day long. Anze Kopitar is great at the tie-ups, to be able to tie the guy up and get possession of the puck by swinging a winger in to get the puck. Claude Giroux, very quick, very deceptive. The list goes on and on. So pick your poison when you're a face-off guy. What kind of style do you have? How do you want to get success? And study the guy who best mimics the style that you want to be at the dot. And finally, like anything else in hockey, find consistency through repetition. Practice your face-offs. 20 to one side, 20 to the other, 20 tie-ups, 20 chip forwards, 20 skate to stick, whatever the technique is. Always continue to practice it, whether it's against one of your own guys or just you with somebody like, let's say, a Marc Bureau. You do that. And another thing that you absolutely need to do is sit down and watch your own video and try to correct your own mistakes. It's a tool that back when I played wasn't available. Instead, I had the coach in my ear yelling at me. But as a player, you can always go back and look at the videos and say to yourself, okay, you know what? I can get better at this by studying my own play and trying to fix my technique. It's as simple as that. So there's all kinds of drills to do that, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's the group, as I was talking about. And so right now you're looking at the Canadiens, they're hovering around 35% at the face-off dot. And the guys that are struggling are normally guys that do relatively well. Whether you're talking about Nick Suzuki, even Kirby Dach, normally around 40%. He's at 25 right now. On opening night, Alex Newhook was not good at the face-off dot. He got better in game 2, hovering around 50%. So he made adjustments. The others can do the same as well, and the face-off percentage can come up. But as I mentioned, you can also have help from the people that are around you that are when you're taking those face-offs, so that if you do lose at the dot, you're not losing the draw altogether. But again, that comes down to coaching. That comes down to player recognition. You get what I'm getting at. But it takes work, just like anything else. Whether it's your penalty killing, whether it's your power play, it's another one of the facets of the game that you have to focus on because it's a very important part of your game. The Canadiens worked on it in the preseason. They need to continue working on it. It's not something you just let go. You keep working. And just like the goaltending coaches, as I always talk about them needing to review the video of their goalies and work with them on some of the things that are not working in their game, Marc Bureau has to do the same thing with his face-off men and say, you look, guys, This is what we worked on in the preseason. This is what I'm seeing right now. So we're going to try this at the next practice. All things that need to be done. So let's see how the Canadiens adjust. Obviously, they're on the road. They're not going to do it right now. But when they get back home, they're going to be able to make these adjustments and move forward from there. Now, another thing that you guys talk about and I talk about is the power play. Always. And recently, in the last couple of games, we've noticed that the second unit really hasn't gotten a lot of power play time. And between you and me, I want to see both units get equal time to see which one's better. But we're not getting that opportunity, and neither is Martin St. Louis, because what's happening is the first unit is getting possession of the puck, keeping it in the zone, and not changing fast enough. Oftentimes, you're seeing the second unit get 30 seconds, 40 seconds. They never get a full minute. Even at one point in the game on Thursday night, what happened? The first unit was out there for a minute and a half because they had possession of the puck during the second period, and instead of being able to change guys on the fly because the Canadiens bench is in the offensive zone during the second period, they remained on the ice. So how do the Canadiens fix this? Well, one of the things that they're going to have to do is start the second unit on certain power plays and give them an opportunity to show what they can do, right? Whether it's Noah Dobson at the point, Patrick Laine on the left, Ivan Demidov on the right. He hasn't gotten a lot of time. That's something that we're all been looking forward to. And right now on the second unit, he's not getting that, right? Our first unit is, Slafkovsky, Bolduc, Suzuki, Caufield, and Hutson. What do we see happening more often than not? We're seeing Suzuki and Hutson on the left side, and we're seeing Slafkovsky and Bolduc on the right with Hutson at the point. And what happens? There's nobody in the bumper, so the power play formation is off. Right? Slafkovsky wants to take the same position at the faceoff dot as Bolduc does to be able to take one-timers. That's not going to work because one of them has to be identified with that role and the other guy has to be identified as the net front presence. Has that been done? Probably not, but it should be. All adjustments that need to be made by Martin St. Louis. Then you take a look at the left side. That's Caufield's spot or Laine's spot. Nick Suzuki has no business being there. If Nick Suzuki were playing more in the bumper, when the puck would come over to Bolduc, he'd be able to give it to Suzuki for a one-time opportunity from the slot. That's not happening. Instead, the puck's going to the left side. The two of them are passing it back and forth. What's happening is Caufield's going down below the goal line, taking himself right out of the play. He can't score from there, and leaving Suzuki up at the hash marks. It should actually be the other way around. Suzuki should leave the puck with Caufield. Suzuki go down below the goal line, since he is the guy that is the primary puck distributor along with Lane Hutson. Then give it to Caufield, let him shoot the puck, or let him go back to the point, whatever it is. Let Bolduc come into the slot to be in the bumper. Leave Slafkovsky at the net front. It gives you options, but that's not what's happening right now. They're on the perimeter, nobody's in the bumper, nobody's getting shots from there. And the last thing that's not happening on the power play is there are no shots coming from the blue line. And I talked about this last year, and I'm talking about it again. During the preseason, everybody talked about how Lane Hutson has been working on getting his shot through and getting shots on goal. He's not even trying right now. And in order to be successful at something, you need to try, right? He tried during the preseason. It worked. Why stop? There's no reason for it. He scored 2 goals in the preseason on beautiful shots from near the blue line. Why not do it again? No. I can't get the shot through. I'm going to distribute off to the flanks instead, which are more easily covered than him at the blue line. All he's got to do is step to his left and just take a quick shot towards the net. He doesn't even have to look. Because, how do I explain this? When you're shooting a puck, right, you have a certain perspective of what you're looking at, right? When you're looking, you're up on your feet, you're standing up, you're 5 feet minimum above what you're trying to shoot at the net. So your vision and what you're seeing is not necessarily the right thing to see, right? For example, when a goaltender is standing in net, if he has his glove down, right, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, I have the top corner open. But is the angle right for the puck to go into the top corner? Because if the glove is out far enough, it's going to take away from being able to stop the puck. And you can see that from my vantage point just by moving my hand, okay? If my glove is back here, you have that space up top. If my glove is out here and the puck is being shot from down at the bottom of the ice, it's coming upwards towards my hand. It'll never get to the top corner. So you have to recognize that part as well. What Hutson should be doing, and what all defensemen should do, is their shots should be a minimum 6 inches off the ice, maybe a foot maximum. Stop shooting towards the top corner because you're going to miss it 95% of the time. Shoot off the ice, allow your players to get into the net front, get tips on pucks, etc. Don't look to shoot, to score on every shot. Now, what happens when you have it a foot off the ice? Well, your conventional pad is 11 inches. So if you're at 12, 13 inches, chances are you may put it under the blocker, you may put it under the goalie's glove and into the net if nobody touches it. But get the shots on goal. Get away from your player, create a shooting lane, move to the side, fire it, and don't worry about the repercussions. If the shot gets through and you don't score, you generate a rebound. If you do score, great. If it gets tipped, great. But do it. The Canadiens don't do enough of it, and that's hurting their power play because all teams need to do at this point is focus on who's on the flanks and take away the shooting lanes. Once they do that, the power play becomes mostly ineffective. So that's the adjustment that I think they need to make. Get more shots from the point, get bodies in front, and use the bumper. Not being done yet, but it should. We're only 2 games in, so I'm not going to freak out about it, but it should be done anyway. So now let's get away from that, and let's take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks and what the team looks like. Obviously, their greatest weapon is Connor Bedard. We're not even going to argue that point, right? When you take a look at their lineup, I mean, they've got a lot of good young players on that team. Whether you're looking at, Burakovsky, Ryan Donato, who's a young veteran, Tyler Bertuzzi, Teravainen, Nazar, Foligno's back there as a veteran as well. So up front, they've got a lot of strength when it comes to the Blackhawks. In goal, between Spencer Knight and I forget what the other goalie's name is, Soderblom. I think it's Arteri Soderblom, if I'm not mistaken. I have to correct myself, though. But between those two guys, their goaltending situation is very good. In fact, on Thursday night against the Boston Bruins, Soderblom was the only reason why the Blackhawks got a point because he was outstanding in that hockey game for the Blackhawks. But their biggest weakness is on defense, and it's something that the Canadiens can exploit with their speed. Defensively, they're young, much like the Canadiens, but unlike the Canadiens, they don't have as much talent. So there's nothing really to say about that in the sense that, the Canadiens are going to be able to attack that D, be physical on that defense. That's going to be really important as well, and be able to create turnovers, right? Then leave it to the goaltenders to do their work. Soderblom started the other night. Chances are Knight's going to start on Saturday in their home opener, but we won't know that until tomorrow's morning skate. Should the Canadiens beat Chicago on paper? Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's early in the season, right? You don't know what the Canadiens are going to look like. We expected them to do better against Toronto. And for a lack of goaltending, they did not do well against Toronto, although they did dominate most of that game. People saw it differently. There are a lot of people out there that are saying that against the Detroit Red Wings, the Canadiens didn't play particularly well. I think it was a great road game, honestly. Yes, the pucks were going in freely. 5 goals on, I think it was 13 shots. John Gibson was not stellar in goal for Detroit. Let's call a spade a spade. But the Canadiens didn't play poorly. They allowed 31 shots on goal. Their goaltender was there to stop them. They never really seemed like they were in any trouble. So if your team doesn't look like they're in trouble and they're going through the motions, then what's there to worry about? Why are you saying that they didn't play well? Because they only generated, 18 shots on goal for the entire game? Second game in back-to-back nights. You don't really expect the energy to be at 100%, right? Although I didn't see a base in energy in the Canadiens skating, but they didn't shoot as often as they did against the Leafs. Whether that was by design or not, who knows? But at the end of the day, they had success scoring against John Gibson. It got them a 5-1 win. To say that they weren't engaged and they didn't play well, that's a stretch. A real stretch, because they did not look poor defensively. They did not look poor offensively. They just weren't able to generate enough shots. Big deal. What's done is done. They won the game 5-1. 2 points, move aside. Stop complaining. You can complain if they get only 18 shots against Chicago, because they should be able to get more than that against Chicago, because, again, they are not the greatest defensive team in the world. Even their forwards are not known for their defensive play, right? Last year, if my memory serves, I think Connor Bedard was upwards of about minus 30. And you're complaining about Patrick Laine. Just think about that one for a minute. Although he did generate, 65 points last season, minus 30. And it means he was on the ice for 90 goals against, something to that effect. That's a pretty big number, don't you think? Anyhow, all that being said, we'll see who's going to start in goal for Montreal. If I was Martin St. Louis, I would start Jakub Dobeš. Jakub Dobeš played well against Detroit, stopping 30 of 31 shots. He looked solid in goal. His poise was good. His puck tracking was excellent. And you want to reward that, right? And if you want to start Monty in Montreal on Tuesday night, then I would suggest you give Dobeš the Saturday night game in Chicago. They probably won't. They'll probably let Monty play both. We'll see what happens. But here's my take on it. Right now, Dobeš has played better than Monty. It's only one game each. I get it. But what I also think is that Monty should be on an extremely short leash. Why? He didn't look good in the preseason. We can all admit to that. And yes, in the past, we heard even Carey Price say, chill, it's only the preseason. I get it. But now you're coming into the regular season and he did not look good in his first outing. So let's see what happens. If he does start against Chicago and he does look poor, then maybe Marty St. Louis should think about changing him sooner rather than later, right, in order to stay in the hockey game. And it's easy to spot. The minute he allowed the first goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I kind of knew something was wrong, personally, in the way he was playing. When the third goal went in off the stick of Riley, it was too late at that point. And the second goal, well, that's another one he could have stopped as well. So, anyhow, I'm picking on Monty again. Stop it, Costa. In the meantime, the Canadiens need to continue doing what they're doing. I think that what they should do is make sure, in order to have success, they take care of both their power play units, not just one, because you don't want to have disgruntled players, right? You've given everybody an individual role, whether it's penalty killing or power play. You need to allow them to play that role. So if your first unit takes too long on your first power play, let the second unit start the second one. Balance it out. Let your team dictate who's going to be the better unit on the power play. And then you can move forward from there and decide what you're going to do. But don't allow one unit to take up more time than the other just because. Vary it. Decide who's going to go out there. I understand that sometimes the line's already on the ice and they're tired. You don't want to keep them out there. I get it. But you have the luxury of two very good power play units on paper anyway. Allow them the chance to prove that they're good on the ice as well. That's all I'm saying. And the other thing that they need to do, which they did against Detroit and they did relatively well against Toronto, is take control of that mid-ice lane. Skate in the middle of the ice. You saw Bolduc do it. You saw Alex Newhook do it, and it created opportunities for them. They can skate with speed, and they don't have to skate in straight lines. They can loop through. They can create lanes for themselves. They can force the defenders over. That's how Newhook opened up the lane to be able to make that pass over to Kapanen to score the second goal. And there's so much that when you look at it through the center ice lane, you look at what Bolduc did. Again, Bolduc made a play that looks like a drill that you do every day when you're playing. And I could describe this drill like the back of my hand. You start at center ice normally. You take the puck as a forward. You skate back towards your own zone. You send it to the defenseman on the far side. You loop around center. He sends it up to the forward at the blue line. He chips it into the zone for this player that's streaking. It's a flow drill, right? And what happened? They did it to perfection in a game. And players repeat that drill over and over and over and over again. And that's what you want the Canadiens to do, is continue to repeat the same things that are working for them. Stop playing outside the dots. And there are some players that do that all the time, like Kirby Dach. Get into the middle of the ice and take control of the middle of the ice. The minute you do that and you force the opposition to come to the middle of the ice, you open up the flanks for your wingers. Your centermen need to take control of that mid-ice lane. So make sure of that. Have them attack the middle of the ice. Force the defenders to move up on them. Force them to close the gap and open up more space for the wingers. Once that happens, and say your winger is open, the weak side defenseman will come over and try to cover him, at which point you'll open up more space for the center and the weak side winger. It all goes hand in hand. So just continue doing the same things. They're working for you right now. And there are some players out there like the Boldzirks, like the Gallaghers. Gallagher has been recognizing that all the time. And why? Because he's talking to Boldzirk on the bench. So Boldzirk is telling him, this is what I'd like to do. If we can get the puck, try doing that. Just put it to open ice. Let me go and get it. Boom. Goal scored. That's what I want to see. Trust your wingers. Trust your players. Don't try to make the plays on your own all the time. When you do that, you get vetted, and then you get covered, and then you lose the puck, right? Allow the other guys to make plays as well, because they can. This team is skilled, and they need to depend on that skill and trust that skill to have success. And that's how they're going to beat Chicago. They continue using their speed. They trust their skill. They trust each other. Good things are going to happen. Let's see what happens tomorrow night. We'll be back after the game tomorrow. Of course, we'll thank our partners once again, instacustoms.com and cheapesttshirts.ca. Be sure to go to their websites and check out their inventory. They are great. I love their stuff. And so please go out and take care of our partners as well. And we'll see you after the game tomorrow when the Canadiens take care of the Chicago Blackhawks. Go Habs, go.